duly present. I am Lieutenant Commander Baptiste. I'm the Public Affairs Officer for the Trinidad and Tobago Coast Guard. My job today is not to bore you with all the security type out there. You got it? Nice. Sea safety, Trinidad and Tobago Coast Guard perspective on the establishment and maintenance of safer waters. Right. The motto of the Trinidad and Tobago Coast Guard is simply service before self. And we say service before self because in the event of a disaster, when you are going home, we are going to work. When there's a search and rescue to be performed and the sea state is category 5 and the wind is churning and it's a storm brewing, we have to go. Can't tell you, it's raining, we go come when it stops raining, the sea too rough. Right? Nobody wants to hear that. Right? But we operate in a multi-mission, very flexible, right? Evident by our ability to conduct complementary functions in the maritime domain. My commanding officer put it together in his way, in a nice way that you're seeing up on the screen there. But our roles and functions, ladies and gentlemen: maritime search and rescue. Trinidad and Tobago Coast Guard is the regional coordinators for maritime search and rescue. Together with TIMA in Tobago, we do a very well-coordinated maritime search and rescue. Maritime law enforcement, which I'll get a little bit into a little later on. Ship and port facility security, where we work hand in hand with the Port Authority of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago, right? And we have a nice, lovely system where we can track vessels and ensure that it's coming in safely. We had a couple incidents where a tanker lost its steering capabilities or rudder capabilities and was happily, slowly drifting into the hibiscus platform on the north coast of Trinidad. Right? Without that tracking system and without proper communications, we would have had a disaster of catastrophic proportions on the north coast. A tanker crashing into an offshore platform is, we probably will still be trying to clean up. My friends from the EMA will tell you, we probably still trying to clean that up at how many billions of dollars later. Joint operations with the Trinidad and Tobago Defense Force, and my boss asked me to make sure I'm clear what Trinidad and Tobago Defense Force means, because people tend to mix it up. Trinidad and Tobago Defense Force is the umbrella body that houses the Trinidad and Tobago Regiment, the Trinidad and Tobago Coast Guard, the Trinidad and Tobago Air Guard, and the Trinidad and Tobago Defense Force Reserves. So often you hear people reporting about the Army, and the Army, and the Army, because you'll see them more in the greens, right? So it's a multiple group of formations. We also do a lot of work with the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service, Fire Service, Port Authority, IMA, EMA, TIMA, and the list can go. I could keep going on and on with that list. But my main focus today, to enforce maritime safety and control regulations, fisheries protection. We also aid to the civil power and authorities. That simply means if police need extra help, we give it. If fire services need extra help, we give it. According to the Chief of Defense Staff, we are all things to all men at all times. Regional security and assistance. As you know, the Trinidad and Tobago Coast Guard, when there's a disaster with one of our neighboring islands, as we recently did with it's Dominica, yeah, as we recently did, sometimes when smaller islands have disasters, the first and only access is by sea. Usually the airports, airlifting things are a little difficult and come a little later because usually the airport runways are covered with debris, boats, cars, even small houses. and the easiest access is by sea. So we now have larger vessels, thank God, that could take loading up 60-foot containers. We could take a complement of soldiers and sailors, head up the islands and start doing what we need to do to help that island be restored to its normal processes. Security of energy-related critical infrastructure. It is our job to ensure that our offshore installations are properly protected. All those LNG tankers you see passing to go to Trinidad, all those oil tankers, and as you know, terrorists are now targeting anything that is flagged US property. So Atlantic LNG, stuff coming for British Petroleum or British Gas, we also have to ensure that when they enter and exit, they remain in a safe manner. Pollution response, this is where we work with the EMA a lot. Oil spills, any sort of chemical spills, we are the first people to get them out there in order for them to do their work. Surveillance and defense of our jurisdictional waters. We contribute to national development, and of course we have ceremonial duties on behalf of the state, which you see regularly with parades, etc. The last major ceremonial duty we had to perform was the burial of Arthur Napoleon Raymond Robinson. First time we ever had to do a funeral in 2 islands in 5 days. The issues would be public safety in the maritime environment. Oh, shucks. Idea clicked in and nobody in. Was it not out? And they tell me point it anywhere. And I did pressing it and thinking it, advancing. Battery dead. So we have to, like football, we have to pause time, right? So, they behaving today? Right, okay. They told me they'll have a big clock counting down the time, and like Grammy Awards, they'll start to play music to get me off the stage. I don't kind of. So, I could go on, y'all? Yeah. Okay. All right, the issues will be public safety in the maritime environment of Tobago. That's what we're going to talk about today. In order to be economically sensible, productive, while building the capacity for clean, green, safe, and serene Tobago. Now, I'm a former employee of the Environmental Management Authority, and we've been talking about clean, green, and serene for a number of years now. Right? And I believe Tobago has been doing quite a good job. Far superior to what we're doing in the sister isle of keeping it clean, green, and serene. But one of the major problems we have in the Coast Guard, I'm not going to talk about all the security and operational things that we do. I want to talk about things that hit home, right? Getting the maritime stakeholders to understand and embrace the importance of the concept. Well, look at that answer there. The current situation, okay, as Murphy, anything that can go wrong, will go wrong. And we are in the Coast Guard when you least expect it, right? Nothing like racing towards running down a boat suspected with drugs and one of the engines kick out. Right, yeah, right there. Cooking with gas, man. Thank you very much. Right. The Coast Guard is in dire need of enabled legislation to effectively underpin and enhance its stewardship of the maritime space. Coast Guard partners with Fisheries Tobago, IMA, Police Service Port Authority, UE, University of the West Indies, which I'll explain a little later, and the Environmental Management Authority. Now, the wonderful thing about Fisheries Tobago is that Fisheries Tobago has vessels. So sometimes when we are having our vessels serviced, or having a little problem, we could patrol with fisheries. We have that wonderful relationship, which helps us maintain our cover. So when people are doing wrong things and they'll see a boat coming, they're not seeing a Coast Guard boat coming, but there are Coast Guard personnel on the boat. So we happen to stop and do a lot of stuff with that, and I trust that will not stop. Right? Now, there's a lack of legislation for fisherfolk, recreational and pleasure crafts to follow, and these are the classic voids. Recreational craft and pleasure crafts, right, hardly get searched when they enter Tobago waters, hardly. They could be bringing a myriad of things on board, right? So people get vexed when we pull up alongside the yacht, say good afternoon, Trinidad Tobago Coast Guard, just here to conduct a routine search, etc. People get vexed and they quarrel, but we have to do these things. My friend from Airports Authority just explained that certain things have to be done, even though it is of a discomfort to you. The police has to run roadblocks, right? It might make you a little late, but they have to do what they have to do. Now, according to what is reported to the Trinidad Tobago Coast Guard, right, Tobago has done very well this year. In terms of search and rescues, we've only had to do 5 from the period January to November this year. We've only had to do 5. 5 tough search and rescues, but we only had to do 5. 0 drowning cases were reported to the Coast Guard from recreational swimming. The police service might be able to give you a different number, but we only record when we are asked to provide divers to come and do a search. A lot of drownings take place and the bodies wash up on shore the very same day, and our assistance isn't required. It's just a police to a DMO family situation. Now the trends that we're going to get into, a great majority of fishermen in Tobago tend to go and fish alone. Why they do it? We haven't gotten full explanations as to why they do that. Right? But a lot of them seem to not want the partner to know where there's getting good fish. Right? So I'll go and fish alone, right? And because they're doing that, many of them tend not to go where they say they're going. Now, the repercussions of that is hard. If I leave it and I tell Dr. Bob, I'll go in off Boku. I'll go in 5 miles off Boku to fish. I just get Dr. Bob that because I know I go in Charlottesville. It had the real fish. When you don't return and Dr. Bob missing you, and he called Coast Guard, he went 5 o'clock this morning, 10 miles west of Boku to fish. We now pull up our charts and we look at current patterns, we look at wind patterns and see that the current patterns from that side of Tobago will take you down across the north coast of Trinidad, straight across to Venezuela, and if we ain't catch you, go reach in Colombia. Right? So we start a search pattern, pull up the computers, we even call Miami for assistance, and we run a search pattern based on that. And we're looking for you off Boku, hell hard. This time you went Charlottesville. And missing. And your family calling and they cussing and they're on the media and they say the Coast Guard ain't doing nothing. We're not looking for the man, we're not doing and these are the challenges that we face. Right? You go fishing alone, something happens to you. Right? Sometimes these guys pulling a line, right? And it entangle their hand and pull them off the boat. But you went fishing alone. Who is there to help you? Right? They go to sea unprepared and under-equipped. Nobody wants to wear a life jacket again. Nobody wants to wear a life jacket. Sometime in 2003 to 2004, the Coast Guard partnered with an oil company, and we did an extensive around Trinidad and Tobago training, giving out life jackets, giving radios, etc. Teaching them how to use the life vest, how to work it. 3 to 4 months after that, nobody had a life jacket or a radio. Right? Everybody complaining that it's cumbersome. But a life jacket could save your life. We have rescued people after being in the water for 4 days because of a life jacket. Anybody here who is a swimmer, you could tread water for 4 days? I doubt it very, very much. Right? When you're wearing a life jacket keeps this part of your body and upwards out of the water. It is bright orange and it has reflectors. When it's you alone in the water, it is this out of the water. You have any idea how it is to search in the God's blue ocean for a head sticking out of the water? It is difficult, right? We're on a boat and you have the sun reflecting back off the water at you and you have to try your best and find this person. We did a search and rescue 180 miles west of St. Vincent because the St. Vincent Coast Guard does not have assets that could take them 180 miles and bring them back. So we had to leave Trinidad and go there. And what rescued those people was their little lifeboat. In waters that's so choppy, right, that when you're on the vessel, the height of the wave is about 30 feet up in the air. And then you come back down, you're looking down at the water like that. So that's the kind of choppy waters we have to do search and rescues in sometimes. And there's a little light, a little red light blinking on top of it. That a sailor shout out, he's seen something blinking over there. Now, the Trinidad and Tobago Air Guard, which we work closely with, they help us a lot with that. An aircraft can get there faster than a boat, of course. And when they spot it, they could give us a coordinate that we could vector to, which helps and makes the rescue a lot easier. Fishermen go to sea without any proper means of communication. A cell phone at sea is not a proper means of communication. There are no cell towers 10 miles north of the north coast. Battery life of a cell phone is a lot shorter than that of a radio. So, and there's no real legislation for registration of boats by owners. I don't have to register my boat. How are we monitoring? How are we checking? How are we licensing people? There is no formal training for boat handling and captaincy either. For a fella to drive a boat in the Coast Guard, he had to go through weeks and months of classes, and that's just an interceptor. Imagine for the bigger vessels. There's nobody teach. There are classes for it, but it is not mandatory. Pleasure craft. In Tobago, we have the unique ability to have these nice glass bottom boats take us out to Boca Reef. Whether they leave from Pigeon Point or they leave from Stowey. Jeez, I was on Stowey, you know. Right? We have found a great trend in these operators overloading their boats. More people you put on the boat is the more money you make. Alright? They have poor operating practices and they are danger to seabathers and of course tourists by extension. No registration of vessels. There's no requirement to be formally trained as a boat captain either. And we want to have something safe, green, and serene. Now I know years ago the EMA came up with a device so that the boat operators don't have to use the reef itself to anchor their boats. If that is still in operation, somebody needs to let me know. The way forward has to be legislation, policies, and rules for a disciplined future. Maritime Services of Trinidad and Tobago needs to push forward the right. There's no rule now that says you have to wear a life jacket on your boat. There's no rule that says you have to have a VHF marine radio tuned into channel 16 to call us in the event of a problem. But the legislation must be flexible and not just for the Coast Guard's use. Coast Guard, police, fisheries must be able to enforce these, simply because, ladies and gentlemen, the Trinidad and Tobago Coast Guard is not an omnipresent organization. We cannot be everywhere at all times. The boat must get refueled. The men must change crews, right? We must be on the east side and can't be on the west side, right? We must be on the north and not in the south, right? Things happen in the day and things happen at night. And under the cover of darkness, the sea is a very difficult place to patrol. The implementation of the M-Fisheries program, which is an effort between the University of the West Indies and the Trinidad and Tobago Coast Guard. We also need cooperation and general education to enable a culture change. There needs to be a culture change, both in Trinidad and Tobago. The way forward is that our fisher folk, as we like to call them, must be prepared to go to sea. They must be. A boat, by legislation now, is what I'm pushing for, that you cannot go to sea without your life jacket. Has anyone really observed the size of a pirogue that a fisherman uses? Are you all aware that the majority of fishermen in Trinidad and Tobago cannot swim? And those who could swim know nothing about survival swimming or survival techniques at sea. Why would I get into a 30-foot, 32-foot, 28-foot, 25-foot little boat and go 10 miles off the coast to fish, right? Not study sea conditions, and I can't swim, and I'm not wearing a life jacket. The mentality that we go in right there and come back just now needs to stop. It definitely needs to stop. Once you go to, now some of them have life jackets, you know, but it's be full up under the thwart. The thwart is the seat on the boat, up in the bow or down in the stern. It is of no use to you when you get side-swapped with a big wave and you fall off the boat. You could swim like an Olympic swimmer. If you get thrown off that boat and the gunwale, which is the rim on top of the boat here, hit you in your head, your swimming skills null and void. However, a life jacket is designed so that you fall in the water, it keeps your face out of the water and it turns you back over. Right? It is so you could be unconscious and still be saved. But without that life jacket, we can't find you. We can't find you. Extra water and rations. Nobody wants to go with extra water and ration because it's picking up space for the fish to go. A VHS Maritime radio at channel 16 is very, very important. Whistle and flashlight. Now, why whistle and flashlight? What he talking about? A whistle supposed to be in your jacket here. Not the kind of whistle that has a little ball in it. Right? They differ, like a Fox 40 whistle or the whistle. There are whistles that come with a life jacket. The whistle has a ball in it. You get water swamped, you wouldn't be able to blow the whistle, because the water sticks the ball inside and it makes the whistle null and void. Why a flashlight? A whistle is necessary because a lot of people think that by waving their hands and bawling means that I will hear you from 2 miles away. Alright? But a whistle is of a high-pitched frequency that you will hear it because the wind will carry it. A flashlight is important because at 2 miles away, daylight or not, flickering a flashlight like that, similar to how police would flicker a flashlight when they want you to slow down on the highway or on the road, right, will get somebody's attention. Handheld rocket flares are essential. Rocket flare is something that, now it is a weapon also, so one needs to be careful and one needs to be taught, right? A rocket flare is held, pressed, it shoots up over 300 feet into the air. We will see it, right? However, unfortunately, people have been using rocket flares to shoot off for Diwali, for New Year's, for Christmas, for Eid, for Carnival, and rocket flares are taken seriously. People from TEMA, Police Service, and Coast Guard and Fisheries will tell you that we take a rocket flare shooting up as something very serious because it is a distress signal. So the culture of that has to change. Go where you say you are going. Don't go alone. Stop going fishing alone. It is way too dangerous to be fishing alone. Now, there's another reason why you need to keep your life jacket on. We have a new influx of people keep terming it piracy. But once you're within the 12-mile border, it is robbery at sea. Piracy can only take place in international waters. Same difference, right? But it's robbery at sea. Sometimes when you're in that little vessel, your only source of safety is to get into the water. But if you can't swim, you're not jumping off no boat. But if you have confidence in a life jacket, and a man approaching and he pull out a gun to shoot you, you'd have nowhere in a 32-foot pirogue you're going to be able to hide. Sometimes your only source of safety is to get in the water. You become a smaller target, right? And you know that that life jacket is there. If you have your radio where it's supposed to be, right, which is a marine radio, it could get wet. You could call, right? The dependency on your cell phone then is null and void because once you submerge that cell phone in water, you're in trouble. I'm being prompted by the our tourist boats. We need to stop overloading these glass bottom boats. Within the year, we have had 100 instances of overloading, much to the annoyance of the boat handlers, right? All we can do right now is inconvenience you. This boat not going anywhere, it's not moving any further until our next vessel come and offload some of these people. That's inconveniencing you, that's upsetting the tourists on board the boat, right? That is getting people angry. Right? It's a lot different than knowing that there's a law that you shouldn't break. If your vessel is outfitted to hold 25 people, then you can't put more than 25 people on board, or else the fine, similar to that of not wearing a seatbelt, would inconvenience your pocket. Right? Inadequate life vest. No radio communications. Right? If these practices, the day that one of those glass bottom boats has an unfortunate incident, because everybody knows that the water before, when you leave Store Bay, but before you get to the Nylon Pool area, the water is very deep. The currents are very strong. And because there's a landmass here and a next landmass there, the current passing between those two are strong. It's like a flushing effect. Because the current is flowing this way and then has to come through a narrower channel to get back out. So the current is twice as much. There's surface current, there's underwater current. The underwater current is usually stronger and faster. So on the surface you might get a surface current of a knot or two, and it's a small thing. Underneath there's 6 and 7 knots. Not too deep under, 4 or 5 feet underneath, 6 and 7 knots. And it carrying you. The last search and rescue we had to do for a diver, we found him somewhere as though he was headed to Trinidad. Right. What is ideal? Legislation, people. Coast Guard, police, and fisheries must have a legislation that we can enforce. A lot of people come into the country like to see things done in a proper legislative manner. Right? This also gives people the authority to say, I'm not going on that boat without the proper X, Y, and Z. Right? I will report you. A culture change for all mariners is totally essential. And a unified approach to the entire thing. Now the M-Fisheries program with the University of the West Indies is literally an app that could be downloaded. Right? So we realize, all right, they like the cell phone thing. Right? So let us try and improve on that. Right? On this program, right, with an independent touring system, etc., there's GPS positioning and tracking. They get first aid tips. A lot of these guys go out there and a fish hook go in their hand or something happens and they don't know what to do. Right? And that's why fishing alone is not good. You could bleed out. We could find you right there on your boat, drifting. Right? It's generally been accepted throughout the fisherfolk community in Trinidad and Tobago. They have a few legislative issues to iron out. So sometime in the new year, they're looking to be able to push that forward. Right? This will enable us to find you if you send a signal. Right? If you just put it on, it will enable us to help find you. Right? So a lot of people don't know where they are after 2 hours of being drifting at sea. Right? Because fishermen use coastal navigation and not equipment. So anytime they lose sight of what they know on the coast, they're lost. They know that hill, they know that building. People on this side in Scarborough definitely know the lighthouse. They look properly, you can see the old hospital, etc. So that is coastal navigation. But that will be lost if you're too far out to even see it. The Trinidad and Tobago Coast Guard will re-establish its coastal community program, which I intend to run from as early as January 2016, with the marketing aspect of it, with a rollout aspect after Carnival, where we'll go to these coastal communities and rekindle our relationship with persons in charge of fishing depots and persons in charge of those areas, and go again with teaching and helping to create the culture change that we're looking for in order to keep people safe on their, in the maritime environment.